Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Husky Hockey Podcast, your number one resource to remind you that all is well and right in the world. We've got Anhorn confirmed coming back, and it's just solidifies our defense, and we're gonna have the season that he's meant to have in the Cardinal of Black, and he's going to lead us to the path of righteousness and everything good. And I'm absolutely hyped and pumped after that announcement. I was, maybe a little bit of a blessing that we're going to get him for an extra year with that unfortunate injury. But yeah, it's definitely going to work out in our favor. I think not only for this year, but for few years to come too, with the extra development maybe for some of those players in the USHL. We got some good recruits coming up. We'll talk all about that. I'm Weldie, sitting here with Andrew. Andrew, do you remember where you were when you heard the Anhorn news?
Yeah, I was folding
watershed
laundry.
moment in life.
It really folding laundry, and I had like a mismatch.
The whites are the colors.
Mismatched pair of socks. Like, one was like a black sock and one was a white sock, and I couldn't find the matching sock in either case. So I'm like, okay, do I just do both? Do one black, one white?
I gotta jump in here really quick. Finding socks, the bane of my existence. Like, if you ever think of having like really dumb superpowers, like what would be like the most like pointless but powerful superpower like in your own life? I think if I would never have to search for socks ever again, I think that would be it. If I had one socks and the second one was just there, because with 3 kids and myself, it's like, and then a dog who likes to just pick up and run with socks anywhere. Oh man, it gets so annoying.
Socks are annoying. Putting socks on, I'm getting really bad at as I age. It seems like, because at least like the white gym socks, I tend to rip the heel of them when you get to the ball in your foot, and then you
oh man,
you're
jerk going
it up
with gusto, yeah.
And it rips all the time, and I'm like, God, here's another sock I ruined. I hate socks.
Interesting.
I didn't have this on our bingo board that we were gonna start we're talking about socks. For the first 4 minutes of this show.
That's why people tune in, because they never know what's going to happen. It might be a Wings reference. It might be MASH. It might be Cheers. It might be socks,
That's right.
So that's...
Never know.
My socks always get holes like right in the right behind the toes. Like, I don't know what that part of the foot is. Like, that's where mine always get worn.
Yeah. You got to wear socks too. It's like a necessity, but they're really quite a kind of a pain. If you think about it. So let's come up with something. I mean,
unless you're like
better.
A sandals person.
Yeah, I mean, that feel obviously works. If you're wearing regular shoes and you don't wear socks, blister city.
Yeah. And then just the sweat, and then you're taking your shoe
Now we're talking
off.
about sweaty feet and blisters and corns.
Shoe off, and then the cushion like comes halfway off your shoe too. And then
can you tell that we're in the summer podcast season?
See, and I'm a big fan of, the sandals and whatnot, but I just have really ugly feet. So I gotta go back in and get a pedicure.
I need to get another pair of sandals as well. So thank you.
By the way, if you get anything from this podcast, other than my excitement for Anhorn coming back for another season, and Okabe coming back too, two huge.
By the way, I was right about the shotgun thing. See, I told you. That was the sign. That was the sign that Anhorn was coming back.
I don't know.
I hope he incorporates that into some sort of goal celebration this upcoming year, because it was good. And we saw the Quinnipiac guy do the Solani.
He did.
Maybe he's taking notes and saying, "Okay, I see you there, and I'll raise you another shotgun.
Sure
so
enough. Yeah. Anyway, just one. We're gonna put a bow here on the socks and feet as the first part of the podcast. Just
you get part 2 at the end of the show. That way they'll keep listening.
Exactly, especially those foot people. Those foot people are dedicated too, so they're gonna listen. It's like, dude. I'll speak to the dudes here. The dudes listening to this podcast, dude, get a pedicure because they're awesome. Like, if you have a chance, just go in and get a ped. Like, even one of any nail places that takes walking or what. Just go ahead and get one, and I swear you will not regret it. And if you have a significant other too, they'll notice too, and they'll be like, "Oh, it looks nice." And it's a great hour 15, whatever. Just a foot bath, foot massage, grind down, take like a sandpaper machine, and maybe that's just me. But anyway, highly recommend pedicures. Everybody should get one. At least try it.
Yeah, if you that sounds like a good idea. If you have any good ones in the St. Cloud area, let me know the names of them so I can reach out for some potential advertising opportunities.
Okay, I'll talk to my wife likes to go to the Daylily.
Daylily.
I think that's in Waite Park.
Waite Park.
Daylily Spa. Yep.
Thank you for the tip.
Yep, exactly. So maybe we can talk to the people at Greedy St. Cloud also to get them on the. I
think he's a Bigfoot guy. So, Larry, I know you're listening. Let me know if you're a Bigfoot guy.
Let me know. So, highly recommend pedicures. Anyway, Anhorn coming back. Really going to get some, leadership to that defensive core. And it's going to be an experienced defensive core as well. I would imagine he's going to be a captain coming back. But it was great to see. I'm excited to see him play for another season here in St. Cloud. So, God, I can't believe you called it too, especially with the whole shotgun with the crutch. So that was kudos on your part.
Yeah. So I think he it was a little touch and go there for a little bit because he waited so long. It definitely did seem like he had to weigh some options there with some pro offers, and talking about how much his injury perhaps spared us of who knows what would have happened at the end of last year. Had he not gotten hurt, good or bad, maybe because he's in the lineup, make a deeper run because potentially your best player. Maybe they do so well in the regular season that they become a 1 seed, and then they do what they always do as a 1 seed and lose in the first round. That's another possibility in the alternate universe.
We're just going alternate timeline.
So you have those options to speculate, but I would have to say his getting injured probably gave us a whole other year. Because if he would have finished the year last year, at least on the trajectory that he was on, maybe even a little less than that, cooled off just a little bit. But he was on track for around a 40-point season. I don't think there's any way he returns. He's in the pros somewhere as we speak if that injury doesn't happen. So weird how karma can go against you in one case, in this case, the 22-23 season, but it granted us him on the blue line for the 23-24 season. And so we'll see if that maybe the long game shakes out the best way here for St. Cloud. And yeah, as you said, I can't echo your enthusiasm enough of him returning here. Just with that return and Okabe, as you said as well, this makes my confidence about this team that much more solid. Without those guys coming back, I'm going to be thinking about another one of these, 4th, 5th place teams. We don't know what we exactly got. With those two coming back, I'm confident at this very, very early stage that they're a top 4 team in the conference and legitimate contenders for Penrose. So long way to go from there until we get to knowing how that all shakes out. But with those guys in the stable, much better. I'm feeling much better about the team. So yeah, thrilled that he is back.
And Okabe was one as well that, I'd have to go back and listen to my, maybe season prediction or, some of the earlier episodes is that Okabe I always thought was, a nice player, but never really set the world on fire for me. This season, I definitely think he did turn a corner. 18, nearly a 20 goal season, which I kind of look as a kind of a benchmark as a top tier type of a season as far as goal scoring wise. If you hit 20 goals, that's incredibly impressive. In this day and age of hockey, obviously, and in college hockey. But yeah, seeing the steps that you've made on all facets, all sides of, or all ends of the rink as well. It was, seeing him come back. It really makes me feel a little bit easier about that front end, just because we have so many question marks when it comes to that. And some of the people that we do have that are in, obviously they're young. When I'm talking about a Sean and a Coin and whatnot, we don't exactly know what we have in them yet, but losing a lot like we did down the middle, and then having that senior leadership come back for another year, with Anhorn and Okabe, that's, I think, going to be, a huge step for some of those younger players to, really go ahead and take that next step and hopefully elevate their game here for this season. So it definitely raises my expectations of what next season's going to come for the Huskies.
Yeah, indeed. Agree with your sentiments about Okabe as well. He's really grown into one of the better players on this team, and his role will be that much more elevated.
Maybe I feel that way, especially when you eliminate North Dakota. Yeah, I think that
goes a long way. It certainly does. And I'm wondering if 2/3 of that international exchange line will be returning with him and Miettinen as well. I mean, another guy that didn't need to come back, but he did. 30-point player, frustrations and all. That'll play. And wondering if they're going to keep those two together. Werner plays center. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, maybe you just refashion the international line. 2 Miettinens and an Okabe. That sounds like a 90s CBS sitcom. 2 Miettinens and an Okabe. Starring
James Van Der Beek.
Parker Posey. Okay. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting. Talking about centers.
2 guys, a girl at a pizza place, right? And then
I think they just then shortened it. They got rid of
just shortened it.
Good times.
And then it went to 2 broke girls, and then 3 men and a baby. And no, I'm way off track now. After I drop a Steve Guttenberg movie, I think I'm going off the rails here.
Yeah, anyway, and you didn't mention
if you wonder,
Police Academy movie.
If you ever wonder if 3 Men and a Baby holds up, it does not. So, just a quick fun fact for everybody. I can't actually say that. I haven't watched it lately. Why would I have watched that lately? That sounds like a terrible idea. But they got a sequel.
Do you know who directed? Do you know who directed 3 Men and a Baby?
Please, I don't.
Leonard Nimoy.
Oh wow, Spock. He and
incredibly random.
He and I have the same birth date, March 26th.
Oh, there you go.
It's like the only other notable celebrity with a March 26th birthday. So,
and before the show, I mentioned I dropped a Beam Me Up Scotty reference for someone that has never watched Star Wars, Star Trek. This is a pretty good Star Trek quotient day for me.
which is really ironic because we're recording this on May 4th. So we're recording this on May the 4th, be with you, on Star Wars Day. And here we are talking all the Star Trek. I do have to say, like, go Huskies Woo, especially. I mean, I believe he's a big Next Generation and Picard fan.
I literally have never seen. I've tried to watch Star Wars, the original. I've tried to watch it twice. I've never been able to get through it. I haven't watched a second of any. The very first Star Wars. So then I didn't see Empire Strikes Back. Never seen Return of the Jedi. When Phantom Menace came out, I saw that twice in the theater.
Oh my god!
But then I haven't seen any of the other ones. So in my entire life, for Star Wars, I've seen Phantom Menace twice and about
blowing
50
my
minutes
mind.
of the original. So, and I haven't watched a second of any Star Wars property. The TV show, any of the movies, none of that.
Well, I mean, so 50 minutes of the original, and you just noped out.
I was really young. I figured I was like in the prime age to really get into Star Wars, probably 12-ish. And I just couldn't do it. But then for some reason, the Phantom Menace, I liked that enough. I was going with friends, like they wanted to go. So I'm like, I was within walking distance from a movie theater. I would go to all kinds of movies back in like the late 90s as like a 14-year-old. So it's not like I really, but I think I liked it. I don't really remember much of it, but I didn't hate it for sure. So maybe one of these days I'll get into it. Like a lot of those sci-fi, high fantasy, I've never seen any of Lord of the Rings. Maybe one day I'll sometime get into it. Game of Thrones, zero interest. But again, I don't know how we got
do you just
3 minutes?
Doesn't matter, whatever. Off season, but like this is fascinating to me. Like, so do you just need your like media to be grounded in more of a reality?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm the human, the world's most boring human, essentially. I needed to be grounded in some sort of reality, like it. Back to the Future, probably my favorite film franchise as a kid, and I still like it. That's how, I mean, time travel is not possible, but it's grounded in a world where it doesn't exist, and these are people reacting to the novelty of something that is so different from what reality is. When you're just you're inventing your own planets with your own rules, and it's just not grounded in any reality, it seems cheating to me.
Cheating.
I just have never really grasped it, even though I know that Star Trek in particular is like, it's all like social issues wrapped up in genre.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not completely averse to it. I would rather watch a lot of other stuff before I get to that. So
would you say, like, I'm trying to like phrase this question where it would make sense. Like, is there where's the farthest you go when it comes to a make-believe world?
I guess just give me some examples and I'll tell you what my line is.
Did you watch Heroes at all?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the likely answer when you say like, how about this? My likely answer is didn't see it, no interest.
Okay. Anything along
like Avatar? Avatar, I saw. I couldn't tell you one thing about it. I saw it in the movie theater, but I saw it because it's like it had so much hype, like the biggest movie of all time.
Yeah.
But it sort of bounced off me like Teflon. I'm trying to even think of like those sort of
like any
movies.
of the Marvel.
I've never seen any Marvel movie. I've never seen a single Marvel movie. Yeah, like I said, I am not particularly exciting as a human being, but just being honest, I suppose.
No, that's. I'm not gonna judge, but it's just surprising to go as far as you have in your adult life and just have like I guess you're tangentially aware of like the references and things like that, but like
sometimes some of them, yeah. Like I know something about like the Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't they have like they play like a lot of 70s music? There's something like with their soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware that there's something called Groot. I don't know exactly what that means.
You don't know what a Groot is? Okay.
It's person, place, or thing. I couldn't tell you which one it is, but I know that that's out there. Thanos. Isn't he like the god from the Avengers or like the bad guy or something? I've heard the name. I know it's something. I think Josh Brolin had a part in playing him or voicing him or something.
Yeah, yep.
So I can glean some of these things. I don't really have the interest to actually consume it myself. But yep, please tell me which of these is the most egregious cultural gap of mine that I need to rectify as soon as possible. As soon as I'm done watching my 1971 through 73 films, which I'm kind of getting tired of, to be honest.
Okay.
So I'm trying to move on from that. But
we're
watching this thing called Network of 76. Great movie.
Oh, okay.
When I was going to St. Cloud, you asked my former roommates, get drunk, and I would spout the rants that the newscaster would go on. Howard Beale. I would do that like at 2:00 in the morning, shouting into the void, the Howard Bealeisms. But
if anybody has a chance to watch Network, it's phenomenal. And it speaks so true today too, which is even eerily more similar or scary.
Yep. It is good.
Okay. So I wouldn't say like egregious. I mean, Star Wars is a big one. If you want to say like just front to back, what's the best? I mean, obviously Star Wars now is getting into its whole huge expansive universe where there's just 12 movies or something like that now, with the whole Star Wars story, and now all of the TV shows, some are better than others. But just going front to back, Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is top notch when it comes to film trilogies. It's really good. So
all right.
That's what I would say. Just try that one first.
Well, can I just try one first? Because they're like 4-hour movies, right? So as long as I'm going to commit to 12 hours, I'll commit to the first one, and maybe if I find that worthwhile, then I'll explore the others. But
yeah, my advice to you, and it's a little bit actually going against the grain, do not do the extended versions. Just do the theatrical. I generally don't. Yeah, the theatrical releases of Lord of the Rings. I think that sums up everything just fine. There's only one instance or one scene I think is actually pretty key that was in the or in the extended that they cut out for a weird reason. But that's if you get to Return of the King. But the theatrical, it's 2.5 hours or so for the first two, and I think the third one is 3:15 or so. But it's a quick. It gets moving. So it's. I would say start there and then report back. So
okay,
you got a month.
Might do that. I'm writing it down right under the Daylily Spa.
Perfect. Thank you.
Got it.
So I'm worried about center depth.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the fish story.
Remind me what centers we got.
Right now, Salquist,
and I really wouldn't be surprised. I would almost I don't know what kind of odds you'd get on it, but I wouldn't be. I would almost kind of bet if the odds were decent that Ingram is going to play the majority of his year next year at center, just because he's not going to be a freshman. Like we've talking about Ryman coming in as a center. We just mentioned Werner Miettinen. These are freshmen, and they're going to get their fair amount of center action. But as far as like we mentioned Sahlquist, and then Ingram maybe, but like who's gonna go on the top line out of those guys? I don't see Sahlquist as a top line guy, although we know how much Larson likes Sahlquist, so don't put that out of the realm of possibility that he's your opening day. He takes the first draw of the year on the top line. Guys like Rosborough,
train my eyes to roll back that hard if that is going to happen, and it is.
It will.
It will happen. That's going to be like your first. Like if we ever talk about predictions for next season, number one is going to be Sahlquist first face-off draw.
Wouldn't it be wild if Sahlquist had like a 20-point year next year?
God, I would happily eat so much crow.
If he gets if he has a 20-point season, he's in MVP territory for me for this team. He's getting an MVP nom at the second annual Herbies. Because that probably
maybe. I mean,
that probably
if he's our MVP, I think we're gonna have a lot of troubles.
I think it would be a good thing if he has.
Maybe like a most improved, like or biggest surprise.
We don't have that's not a current Herbie.
Well, we can add. This is like the Academy Awards here. We could just add and remove categories.
Would it be the Tony Mosey most improved?
Oh, there we go. The Tony Mosey Award.
And so, think about other guys currently on roster. Rosborough has taken some center.
I mean, if we're going actually like most improved, like in not a joking, tongue-in-cheek sort of way, it'd probably be the Craig Godet Award.
It's a nice pull.
The guy who has like 4 games in this first 3 seasons, all of a sudden scores like 3-4 points in his first weekend series. His senior year, and then just doesn't get taken out of the lineup. That's what I feel would be the most improved. Boom, got it. New category next year. Most improved.
Yes.
Which
Craig Godet.
If we want to go retroactively, then the award winner I think would be Okabe then for most improved.
We're doing this on the fly. I think Kupka would get some votes.
Yeah. Oh, Peart. Peart.
I would vote for either Kupka or Okabe.
Okay. Over Peart? He was really improved from last year. Really improved. Really?
I mean, you remember game 2 against Duluth in the playoffs where he assisted on Duluth's third goal by giving up a pass right to the slot in the defensive zone.
We can cherry pick bad plays all the time.
I would say those 3 would probably be the finalists. Maybe Spalacy. He had 12 points, and we weren't expecting that out of him, I don't think. But I'd say the 3 that we just mentioned are probably the.
All right. Well, everybody 3. Cast your votes. Let me know next for next podcast.
Put a poll for that.
Put a Twitter poll.
We'll give them.
We'll give them
the belated Herbie. But
it'll be in the mail for him. We have to also clear it with Godet and his agent to make sure we can use his naming rights. Nobody else had a problem, but who knows?
Yeah. So as far as centers, I've tried to mention twice before you've cut me off.
Just jumped right in. Back to the fish story. Sorry.
Rosborough has some center experience, and on paper he feels like he would be serviceable there, but he hasn't done a whole lot and was benched for a lot of the later part of the season after a couple of rough performances. Maybe they give him a deeper look at center. Otherwise, I mean, who else we got in the pipeline as far as centers go? We mentioned Ryman. We mentioned Miettinen. Is there anyone else that I'm missing from guys?
Tyson Gross.
Tyson Gross, that's right. And he is definitely coming in. We're mentioning the guys that are probably going to get some extended looks at the center position, and probably a good idea to have more than 4 because you're going to probably cycle through them and see what works, see what doesn't, have a competition.
That's why I think we're going to have Ingram at wing first, is because we're going to have more centers, and then it gives us that added flexibility, which is always.
Let's see too. Like I the reason I'm kind of confident about Ingram is it's talking about what centers like their responsibilities are. Yes, it's taking faceoffs, but it's much more than that. I mean, it's your best skater as far as your forwards go. Best skater on the team. Best skaters are generally your defensemen, is among the forwards. Best skaters are your centers. They do a lot more work. They're instrumental in creating in creating transition, breakouts, and all that kind of stuff. And so you just want your best skaters to take that responsibility because it's a lot more work. And that's why I do think that Ingram has the skating ability to shoulder the load. But if he's better suited at the wing, which he was this year, then obviously if you're going to get more offense out of him, I'd prefer the spot that gives that produces the most points out of Ingram. But just I don't think that the position is something that he can't handle. And I'm curious if that's a position where now with a little bit more experience, he's got the first year jitters all under his belt. Let's hope. Let's see if he's ready for that sort of increased responsibility. I think he's got it in him. So, curious how that all plays out. But I mean, expecting a lot of freshmen to pick up some of the center production as well, and that's always tricky to predict who's going to really emerge out of that group as far as like a steady, consistent performer at that position. It's a little surprising. We can transition this into talking about the new transfers that the picked up. Mm-hmm. I was surprised. So they got Nick Ports from North Dakota and Carl Falk from Alaska, Fairbanks. Falk defenseman. Ports a winger. When Ports entered the portal, I was sort of like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up in St. Cloud because he is a local kid. Mm-hmm. And so hearing that he was coming into the fold, not surprising. However, it sounds like he's not center at all. He's a winger. And I was a little surprised that if we're dipping into the portal, I figured that defense made sense because we're talking about possibility of having a pretty young point next year, or bringing in a lot of young point men next year, freshmen, D next year, and having a veteran presence is a good idea to have. But I would also say the most glaring need from the forward position would have been a center, because as we're talking about, we just don't have the numbers, and plus having a more veteran presence like a Crookshank, not that you're going to pick up one of those guys every year, but he was like the perfect fit for the team last year. And someone in that mold, not necessarily a 30-plus point player, but someone in that mold would have made more sense. Ports doesn't sound like he's going to play any center for you. That was a little disappointing, just that they didn't add another center guy. And I suppose there was more time if they really wanted to pick up. The portal is still available for guys, but it's dwindling in numbers. And it will close at some point. I'm not sure the exact close date, July 1st maybe. I think the date to enter the portal is either up or close to being up. There is a window where you need to get into it by a certain date, but then it does stay open until another certain date wherein that action then will close. So there is still, I guess, a possibility that they do pick up a center from that avenue. But let's talk a little bit about Ports and Falk, because it's always interesting dipping into the portal again, something that Larson has done, pretty much every year since this has been a thing, going back to Cockrell and Donahue in the 2020, prior to the 2020-2021 season, picking those guys up. Guys got picked up Spalacy the next year, picked up obviously Anhorn and Crookshank last year, Bassey as well. And now you got Falk and Port so far this year coming in the portal. So he's always been very active in the transfer portal. And he's played it to his advantage. He's got a if you add up the adds and the subtractions, Larson comes out a winner when it comes to the transfer portal because he's lost guys, but they've been the guys like Chase Brand and Brady Zemer who we lost this year. Those guys actually might be like the most high profile guys they have lost to the portal. In the past, it was more guys like Thomas Rocco and Joey Lamoureux. And not to say that Brandon and Zemer didn't have any value, but I do think that getting
especially as Falk, the resident Zemer fan club of this podcast,
right?
Too,
that's true. So yeah, I mean, what are you thinking? Like Ports, 2 years in North Dakota with the hated green. Didn't put up a ton of points for UND, but he was basically a fourth line guy. Healthy scratch a lot of the time. I know he scored at least a goal or two against St. Cloud. So I'm not sure exactly what to expect from him. We shouldn't expect a Crookshank type of contribution from him, but maybe a 10, 15 point season, something like that. It's always nice. I always like the idea of having a local guy on the team. Maybe that's too, I don't know, conventional wisdom or traditional of me, but I always had a soft spot for the Peck Scamp and Spencer Meyer, and
Johnny Swanson.
I know there's more that we're forgetting. Will Hammer. But it's always nice to have a local guy on the team, I think. And so happy to get him in the fold. And then I think this Carl Falk's pretty intriguing as well. More of a defensive defenseman, stay-at-home guy for Alaska. Obviously, they had an interesting year this past year. European, was it Swedish, Finnish? I think somewhere in the Scandinavia part of the world. You can fact check that on me if you'd like. Rand McNally, but seems like a guy that knows his role, and I don't expect him to be like a Donahue or Anhorn type of transfer where they're going to be quarterbacking a power play unit here. He seems more in the mold of, kind of like a Zemer. If maybe like a better Zemer, if we're going off of not watching him at all, but just reading a stat line and getting a bit of a idea of the narrative of what to expect. So Ports and Falk,
that was a solid,
thoughts?
And that Alaska squad also was a solid Alaska squad. I believe they were the last one out, I think.
Yeah, they were knocked out the last day of the last day of conference tournaments. Yeah, and they lost a fair amount of. They had an active transfer portal themselves, and we saw this last year as well when they had not as good of a year, but an average to slightly above average year last year, and having guys use that decent year as a springboard to another program. 8 guys from Alaska this year into the transfer portal. So, I mean, that's second most in the country. And, Providence, Northeastern, and Wisconsin with 9 guys in the transfer portal.
Well,
I don't know if you're in midseason form here or you're a little rusty, but 9 players from those schools.
Thank you. I needed the second cue because
I kind of threw that out there without warning. But glad to know you're still on your toes.
I mean, a little bit of a. Do you know how many Wisconsin, for instance, has?
I guess I could have tap danced that.
You could have. Then I could get the right tab open for that. But
I could have. But
okay. It's off season. Whatever.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, by the way, just going back quickly, women's hockey actually the portal ends today.
Okay. I knew it was sometime like in May.
Women's hockey ended today, or in the past. If you're, when you're listening to this, May 4th was when that closed. Men's ice hockey ends May 18th.
Okay.
So that's 2 weeks or so from recording. But the 18th is when is the last day to dive in. So,
yeah, and there's still some talent out there to be had. 3 defensemen right now.
Oh yeah,
20 plus points that are still uncommitted, including Brandon Koch from Air Force, who Hastings, Minnesota kid. My dad coached him.
Oh, nice.
And he's got 24 points. I'm surprised he hasn't found a place yet. But
he's getting wined and dined right now, maybe.
Perhaps.
Just...
Hey, there's Carson Briere from Mercyhurst is in the portal.
Yeah,
no baggage attached there.
No baggage there. Just
that's a good pedigree. That Briere name, it's I don't know, it's synonymous with hockey. It's like Granado, for instance. Like it goes a long way in hockey circles.
Woof. So, yeah, I was, Falk. That's I thought that was a great addition. Obviously we're losing with Meyer. We're going to be losing a little bit when it comes to that defensive prowess. So I think him coming back, or having somebody kind of step in for that, I think is good. Another, like I said, Alaska was a solid team, coached really well. So I think that's going to be just a benefit there. Ports has the ability to score. He was a pretty good scorer in the USHL. Just hasn't manifested to the college game quite yet. So it'll be interesting if how Brett Larson uses him and how he kind of jumps into the role here, and maybe just kind of a scene change is what's needed. We saw, North Dakota. I mean, a lot of players jumped into that portal from North Dakota. So it's, I'd love to just speculate on what the culture is like there, because that's always fun. But I'm excited. I'm very intrigued when it comes to that. But also, I did expect maybe one more person to kind of come in. And that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. And we can speculate right now if we want to move over to the freshmen of, possibly coming up, because I've got 4 freshmen coming in, maybe 5. I mean, I guess
it's got to be more than that.
But yeah,
I just want to mention first, Carl Falk is Swedish. Did want to check on that. Interestingly, he's got a twin brother, Simon Falk.
Simon, yep,
also is in the portal right now. You look at their elite prospects page; they're almost identical because they've played on every team going back as far back as 2014. Is what Elite Prospects has. Played all their junior hockey, youth hockey in Sweden together. Played with the Minnesota Magicians in the NAHL together, and then went to Fairbanks together. Surprised that this wasn't a package deal, like getting both of them in, or that they would be willing to go to different. Maybe they're just sick of each other. It's like, I don't want to see anymore. We want to get free of each other. But interesting that there is another Falk still out there, also Alaska commit. But yeah,
I did think that like there would have been an outside chance that maybe we're just waiting on something for that announcement to kind of drop. But when reading the Rink Live article about Falk commitment, it just sounded like, nope, it's we're just splitting up type thing. It was just like, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit weird that he's not on the team anymore, but I'm kind of excited for something new. So it's I just found that kind of interesting.
And I hope that all of our listeners are glad. And talking with me, Mr. 70s cinema guy, we've gone this whole time and I've never even made a Peter Falk reference talking about Falks. So do not paint me in a broad brush. I am not just a pretty face here. So, but yes, I am a big fan of Peter Falk's screen presence, and we have a whole season or 2 actually, because it looks like he's got 2 more years of eligibility for me to make Columbo references.
Oh, sure enough. Oh,
buckle up for those.
Just one more thing. So it's we were talking, and one more thing. Yeah, Peter Falk was just so much better at it than I am right now. Because we were.
See, I don't know if you're doing a bit right now.
No,
this is
totally
good.
forgot my train of thought.
Well, we were talking about.
Is this what it's like when I always interrupt you? God, that's annoying.
Just imagine being a listener. Think of what Dan Jacobson thinks. I mean, he's got to be completely lost.
He either turned it off after the sock conversation or turned it up. I don't know which one. He went. He's like, "This is the content I'm here."
I bet Dan Jacobson is one of those, because if you ever hear these, or maybe you do this. I've never done it, but listen, like one of the people that listen to podcasts at like 4 times the speed. Because they want to get through it really quick.
Yeah.
I bet that's Dan Jacobson.
Yeah.
I bet he's at one of them. Tell us, Dan Jacobson, if you listen to podcasts at regular speed.
How higher is my octave at 4 times speed when it's kind of just going through? I sound like a chipmunk. I sound like Theodore when I'm talking. I like when I listen to audiobooks or whatnot, like when I'm doing dishes, I'm at like 1.25 and I max out there. Like I can't even do 1.5 for audiobooks. Maybe a podcast I could do it because there's a little more banter usually with the podcasts that I listen to. But even then it's like I gotta have my brain gotta process what's being so I can't do the 2 times speed or anything like that.
I went to St. Cloud State. I need things slowed down at a comfortable speed
Harvard
and level. That's right. I need every bumper on me to help me along here. We were talking about recruits.
Yeah, we were talking.
And then I interrupted you about the Peter Falk thing. What I did want to say about Ports and Falk, one added benefit of having them take up a roster spot is that you don't have to rush 2 guys from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah.
We were talking about specifically the last time, maybe 2 shows ago. The last show seems like 2 months ago at this point for me. But so I'm not sure when we talked about recruits in depth, but talking about a lot of young guys on the back end in among the recruits. Guys like Warren Clark, who I've heard his name mentioned in some draft, like mock drafts. Perhaps expect him to go in the mid to late rounds in this year's draft I think he's 18.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need to rush him now. Got Bufflin as well, another guy that's too young probably, and we don't have to worry about rushing him. You got the Caleb Tyson or Thiessen, however we're deciding on pronouncing his name. He will definitely be coming in because he's age restricted. He's got to come in from the back end. And as far as the other defense, just pulling it up right now, Garuba, we think, is coming in. I mean, he has more juniors eligibility, but I think his stock is rising to the fact, and I think he's ready. He's playing with Fargo right now, who's making a deep run in the USHL playoffs. I think they're in the Western Conference Finals, or Western Division, or something. I'm not super well versed on my USHL geographical layout, but I know that they're deep in the playoffs, and Garuba is a big part of that. I would expect him to come in, drafted player with some hype, and he's late bloomer. Seems that he's capable of coming in next year. But then, Clark and Bufflin, and then we got Tanner Hendricks, but he's 16 in California. No chance he's obviously coming in. So it just might be those two. This way would bring Falk in. You don't have to rush Clark or Bufflin, and you can have them get another year of seasoning in the junior ranks. Is that going to be so? If that's the 3, so Falk, Tyson, and Garuba. So then who else do we got? So we got Anhorn, Lukey, Wiley, Reiners. So that's 7.
So that's the thing is like when I was going through like the recruits, I was like, we're one short, and obviously, elephant in the room, we still don't know Trey Ball stats.
Right, that's correct.
So
Nick Hatton seems to be thinking that it's a foregone conclusion he's not coming back, but we haven't heard one way or the other. I think that maybe it was the Anhorn article or perhaps the Falk/Ports article. He was basically saying that he wasn't even factoring in Trey Ball as a possibility for next year, but we still haven't heard a definitive answer one way or the other. I'm surprised we haven't. I mean, if he was going to sign a pro deal, you'd think that whoever wanted him, either a European league or an American league, could use him for their playoff run if they were interested in him. And the fact that he's still unsigned is, I don't know, odd.
Maybe he's just moving on with his career.
He could. Yeah. I mean, not everybody goes pro in hockey. Yeah. So, and speaking of that, I had mentioned, because I know on senior night they announced Anhorn's major as liberal arts. I only remember that because I didn't know that liberal arts was a major. But no, Hatton's piece stated that he's kind of far from a liberal arts major. He's a neuroscience major. Smarty pants, Dylan Anhorn is, as it turns out. And he'll be taking grad courses in sports management. So whatever information that our friend of the show, Jason Bryant, had when he announced the major on senior night, that was incorrect. So good to know that he is a little smarter than the average bear. And we got a neuroscientist running our top power play unit.
It's like, what was it, Bobby Gepford on senior night? I think it was elective studies was his major.
It's essentially what I think what I would imagine a liberal arts major is. There was a couple of those. Maybe they just didn't know. Maybe Jason Bryan didn't know, and he was just tap dancing and just throwing out random majors. But
he probably has a whole story about what happened, and or he just
most likely
like,
that someone gave him some wrong information on the sheet, and I mean, it makes sense, the shotgun approach. I don't when he's doing the shotgun thing, my first thought is not neuroscience, and so I can see where that was a surprise. Well, I mean, he was at Union, which is like a hoity-toity engineering school, so they don't. I mean, it's not quite the Harvard of central New York, but
the East.
Yeah, but it's close. So good to know all those things that we just said.
Yep. But yeah, that leaves 7 defense. So it's like, I mean, we're not rolling with 7, and especially with Anhorn, who maybe it's not fair to call him injury prone after one injury, but I mean, just we got to go with at least one more. We have to have some kind of buffer there. So then the decision comes in, or the discussion comes in, where do you go? Do you go portal for a defenseman, or do you bring in Bufflin or Gruba? Because I think those are kind of your main options. Clark just got selected, in the USHL. I think Waterloo.
Well, in my 7,
I don't remember.
In my 7, I was including Gruba in that 7. So I think you'd be going into either Clark or Bufflin if you want to bring in another recruit for your 8th defenseman.
No, you have Lutke, Wiley, Anhorn, Falk, Reiners, Peart.
Oh, Peart! I'm forgetting Peart. So yeah,
Thiessen, right?
Yep. So I was forgetting Peart for some reason. Oh. So
okay.
I would think that Gruba is coming in. I have no inside information about that, obviously, but I feel like his stock has risen to the fact that I think he's ready. And
Leo Gruba, if you're listening to the podcast, if you want to let us know if you're coming in, you can find me at the Daylily Spa getting a pedicure. So just let me know. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I suppose I suppose if you're dipping into the portal again, that might keep Gruba back. Maybe they think that that it would be valuable for him to get another year in the junior ranks. I mean, they recruited him out of the NAHL last year, right around this time last year, and then he got drafted, or did not get drafted. I'm sorry. There was rumors that he could get drafted, but then moved up to the USHL for this year. As I said, he's kind of a late bloomer, and he's kind of, like I said, stock has risen pretty significantly. So I think he might get drafted this summer as well. I would almost expect that. And so I think he's a guy that you want to bring in because he could go a lot of places that would give him prime playing time. And so I would bring him in, but obviously the coaching staff knows better about when to pull the trigger and when not to. And so, but at least, with knowing, that Falk is coming in, a couple of these, especially younger guys that don't have the quite a hype that Gruba has as yet in Clark and Bufflin, keeping those guys back, I think it will be nice to get some more seasoning from them. But it'd be interesting to see what happens. And then obviously too, if Trey Ball decides to come back, that would be another. That'd be a good thing, obviously, for the team because he's specifically he's precisely what the team could use. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that shakes out. From the forward position, I guess Port's coming in, like a guy like Thorson, pretty sure he's staying back for a year, which I think is wise. I mean, he doesn't seem to be struggling to adapt to time in the USHL. Had some time prior to the high school year, got his feet wet there, and then returned to the USHL after the state tournament. 15 points 24 points in 26 games, roughly a point per game output. And that's as an 18-year-old. And so there's definitely the argument to be made that he can be brought in. But I think a full year in juniors, get him, to bulk up a little bit, used to the added speed and more physicality to this NCHC, a tough league for 18, true freshmen to come in. And so I think it would be ideal for him to stay another year in juniors. Expect him to be drafted this summer as well. He's your number one prospect. If this was like a baseball equivalent, he's your top prospect. And so you obviously, like I said, could see the argument bringing him in, but I think it's best for him and for the team that he gets one full year in juniors, see how that works out, and then bring him in 2024. As far as the others, we've mentioned some of these, Tyson Gross, Jack Ryman, two centers with USHL experience this year. Both of those guys, 20 years old, you're going to need to bring them in, so they will be definitely coming in. Werner Rietinen as well. He's 20, but I think he has another year of USHL eligibility, but expect him to come in this year, having a good year with Fargo. Obviously, we know the Rietinen name. As far as the others, what are our numbers look there as far as how many do we need to bring in now with Ports on board? Because after those three, it's a little less, it's a little more hazy as far as who's going to be coming in after that. Because you have guys like Kupko, Martins Lavins, Barrett Hall, drafted last year, similar to Gruba, where NAHL last year, USHL this year, making the jump fairly well. Jonah Agutter. These are the guys that are possible adds to the forward depth. just not sure which of these last 3 or 4 that I just mentioned, which of those are going to come in next year and which are going to be held back. What's your thoughts as far as numbers, and who do you think has the inside track to coming in this fall?
Yeah, so we have ports coming in. So we're what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 short, maybe.
Okay.
4 or 5 short. So definitely, we've got like you said, Gross and Ryman. They're going to be coming in.
Miettinen, I think we can be confidently pencil in.
I think we can be. And if I were to guess, I would guess Lavins. Suddenly, all of a sudden, that's a lot of centers.
Lavins is center as well.
Lavins is a center as well. So yeah.
You had this Lubomir Kupko as well, who's current line mate of Ryman with Des Moines. So, I mean, you have the possibility of maybe bringing in a chemistry pairing there already. Like I said, of the guys that I've mentioned, Barrett Hall might have the most upside. And I'm almost more intrigued with him than any of these others. But similar with Thorson, I mean, Hall's a year older. He's already been drafted. He can come back for another year in juniors if he wants, or if they would prefer. But in the similar case of Gruba, like, if you think he's ready now, I think you bring him in. So, yeah, there's going to be some tough choices. It's a good problem to have. Should mention, a lot of these guys also are having productive years at the USHL.
Not only that, but that goes 2 ways. That's a 2-way street too. Is that you have to also juggle that the recruit is going to be happy with that decision too. I mean, if a recruit very much thinks that, yes, I am ready right now, and Larson may say, nope, we don't have the room, or we don't have the spots, or 1 more year, then we can bring you in. No, it's a verbal commitment.
That's right.
Boom, decommit, and then all of a sudden open up everything back up, and maybe someone has a spot for you right now.
Yeah, I mean, we got coaches getting into dust-ups at suit and tie conventions here. Yeah. Apparently plucking guys from other teams. So it's the Wild West. Yeah, you damn right it goes both ways.
I was gonna get into conference schedule and whatnot, but yeah, let's just hop into shoving fisticuffs / whatever you want to make of it, because everything is all hearsay kind of at this point. No one's actually gone and say kind of what happened, but there was a dust up at the
it's not necessarily even hearsay
Corral
at this point. We got names and schools attached to the participants in the fisticuffs.
Yes, I meant like hearsay as in like the like, did they go toe to toe, or was it just a nudge, or was it like a violent push?
Seeming enough to write an article about it, for me, I think it's
not like in the New York Times or anything.
I think it was
we're a step above the dirt sheets here. It's where we're at.
I feel like it's like St. Thomas is fully in D1 hockey now. Now that they have assistant coaches that are throwing punches, it seems like they're in the club now. The first couple of years, was the 12-2 first ever game from them, loss handed to them by the Huskies. They really weren't much of a team. A bit of an improvement this year, but still nothing to really sneeze at. Now, I mean, they've been having a very active offseason. Clearly losing one guy in the portal didn't sit really well with the coaching staff, but they've been very active picking up guys in the portal as well. 3 or 4 from CC in particular, like a CC to St. Thomas pipeline for some reason. And none of these guys are like can't miss blue chipper, Crookshank 30-point guys next year for them, but they seem to have, make some decent ads, and this was Josh Earness, was one of their leading scorers last year heading to Michigan. I mean, it was a little, you see this from time to time with the portal. A guy enters the portal the same day they announce where he lands. It might not have been the same day, it might have been the next day, but it was a very short time for him in the portal itself. And Michigan ended up with him, and that sparked some connecting the dots, or maybe manically connecting the dots, connecting dots that weren't there, that thought that this St. Thomas assistant coach believed that Michigan was tampering with Earness, offering him a position prior to him actually getting into the portal, which would be illegal. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of that stuff is happening already or has happened in the past. Legally, extra legally, quasi legally. I mean, when Crookshank came to St. Cloud, I mean, he had made a stop at St. Cloud last year, and before he settled with the Gophers, and so it's like Larson and them. He knew Larson and knew the staff, and so when he entered the portal again, it was sort of like, again, I don't think there was any funny business there, but it's just how hockey can go sometimes. So you make some connections, and those connections can be exploited, some random time in the future too. So yeah, I'm a fan. Like we need to get some actual journalists at these coaches meetings from now on, because you get like a Hunter S. Thompson at the Democratic National Convention sort of piece at one of these things, apparently. It's hopefully we can have like college hockey journalists that would be able to write something like that instead of just kowtowing to every coach that's their source. But
I think what we would need to do is fund them. I think that's kind of the main thing. Let's Sydney Wolf. Let's get her down there. Let's get her hitting the pavement and talking to all the and have her get all the big scoops. I like that idea.
Yeah, and let's get some video on some of these.
That's what
activities.
Everybody wants to see, right?
Yeah, so. It's after the spirited round of golf that they all played. Maybe it's the golf course. You just need like an informant on like a golf cart, sort of going through the course, because it's like, I'm spotting Greg Carvel throwing a haymaker at the Yale assistant coach off in the woods next to the 8th tee box. That's where all the dirty stuff happens.
I don't know. Do they have woods in Florida?
Oh, I'm sure they can bring them in and install them. Yeah, you can do anything. Yeah, it's in plastic trees. Yeah, it's Disney.
That's a good point. Just pick up and move It's a Small World. Not It's a Small World. The Rush Mountain. No, Thunder Mountain. I don't know. The one that's exactly. Just move that.
The one with the mountain.
The one with the mountain. That's the one movie that Disney doesn't want to talk about anymore, where that whole is based off of. I think they now switched that to Frozen. I think it's a Frozen theme. It was Song of the South.
It's another movie that I've never seen.
Song of the South.
But I know. No.
Oh, it's not good. It's
Frozen.
Frozen. Okay. Have you seen Song of the South?
No, that's like the zippity doo dah. Like really racist one.
Yeah.
But the Frozen's one where I've never seen it, but I know a lot of the stuff about it. Elsa,
gotcha.
Olaf, all of those are two Crossword staples. So
gotcha. Yeah, I have a 5-year-old daughter, so I have seen it and Frozen 2 so many times. So
I can imagine.
Yeah. I was just kind of looking through the Rink Live's portal spreadsheet that they have. I'm going to
excellent tool.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you know the one team in college hockey that has not had any activity in the portal, leaving or coming?
Okay.
Yeah. And I will give you a hint. It is not. I don't know if I want to say my original hint. It isn't like a Stonehill or a Long Island, because they've actually had activity. So
well, I was gonna think about an Ivy, because they can't pick up. Well, they can't pick up like grad students. There's certain that they're kind of limited as far as who they can pick up transfer wise. I was gonna think of someone like that. Like,
but that's even entering the portal too. Like people entering.
I know. I'm just gonna randomly guess.
Although to be fair, yeah, Harvard only has had one person into the portal.
I was gonna say Yale.
He transferred to Notre Dame.
Yale?
No. That's
is it East or West?
West.
It is.
It is.
Let's go with Bowling Green. I haven't heard much about Ferris F. State.
Ferris State. God, I missed the tab. They have had actually quite a few people enter the portal. Really? Only 2 people have committed somewhere else, but they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people enter, and they picked up 2.
Is it from the state of Michigan?
So, no, it's from the state of Minnesota. Bemidji has had no activity. Nobody leaving, nobody coming.
Sartori's got that program on lockdown.
Yep, exactly. Nobody in or out of Lake Bemidji. You are stuck here.
Kidnapping his entire team. It's an escape room, and nobody has the key.
Yep, exactly. So
it's a good tidbit.
Yeah, just kind of fun as I was kind of going through. Did you want to talk about conference schedule? We don't have a full schedule yet, and I feel like we're one of the only teams that doesn't have a full schedule. Because various teams over the past 2 weeks or so have been kind of sending out what their schedule looks like. However, we do have the conference schedule. And then we also have a little bit of information about some non-conference teams, but not when exactly, except for 1 or 2 series or something like that. I think you know a little bit more about that than I do. But as far as, kind of the conference schedule, how we kind of shake out, we can kind of run it through quickly. Before the Christmas break, we have Miami at home at Western, and then Duluth at home. I was so excited to see Duluth in November. And then I saw it was at home, and then I just got depressed again. Because I mean, especially right after Gordon Lightfoot died, going up to November in Duluth, I think that just would have been awesome. And nope, it has to be. I don't know. Flip that series. That's. But anyway, do you have a favorite Gordon Lightfoot song? I love Gordon Lightfoot, by the way. I
was gonna say
all of his catalog, and I went to a concert that he played at 7 years ago or something like that. The guy,
where was that?
He died.
He didn't come to St. Cloud, did he?
No, State Theater in Minneapolis.
Okay.
He died at 84. He looked every bit of 84. He looked like an old man, and it was, what is it? Songwriters on PBS. I mean, that's the feel of the concert. It was him up there singing, the band playing. I mean, there was no obviously pomp and circumstance at his age. But yeah, I mean, he played, some of his biggest hits. A little bummed he didn't play some other ones that I really like. Obviously, everyone knows Requiem and Fitzgerald. but Sundown is
Sundown's great. If You Could Read My Mind.
My favorite. If You Could Read My Mind has been covered by numerous artists.
And the hook was stolen by Whitney Houston in The Greatest Love of All, which he got some, I believe he sued successfully. And not Whitney Houston, whoever wrote the song for her. But that's a great song. I can't say that I know a ton of his catalog, but I don't know, 10 songs-ish I can tap my toe to. It's a song called Early Morning Rain that I like. I actually think Dylan did a better version of. But he's in that.
They were like best friends too, Bob Dylan and Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah, man, they're kind of, they're made from the same cloth.
Yeah, that's true.
Canadian, Minnesota folk singer, songwriter, story songs, good stuff.
Carefree Highway.
That's a good one.
Wherefore and Why is one of my favorites. Did She Mention My Name? Cotton Jenny. There's obviously going down the list. If you have a chance, just take about 30 minutes and just kind of go through some songs. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
And you said because I've been to in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. There's the Shipwreck Museum. It's a museum of shipwrecks in Lake Superior. And so there was a big exhibit about the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I was going to say, you mentioned they're playing Duluth in November. I think that's the month that the Edmund Fitzgerald sank. And it was correct. November 10th, 1975. Did they mention that in the lyrics? Is it some November day in 75? Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. They might.
We're gonna get copyright strike. That was.
It could. It's a good Lightfoot too, wasn't it?
They don't say the actual date, but they do say when the skies of November turn gloomy.
Thank you. So that would have been perfect to go up to Duluth on Superior, on the tip of Superior there in November.
But
it's a shame.
No,
I think they've only gone up to Duluth once pre-Christmas in the NCHC era. I think it was the first year of the NCHC. They've always played. The majority of them are always the last weekend in January.
Yeah.
And now that they've done this the last couple of years where they play the designated conference rival the last weekend of the year, that's really the only time we've gotten off that last weekend of January weekend. Is now we'll play them in the first weekend in March to wrap up the regular season. So yeah, I would like them to have a early season Duluth trip, but at least it's nice to get them once in the early part of the year. I mean, last year it was 3 of your, you played them in 7 games of your last probably 12 or 14 were against Duluth. It's nice to split them up a little bit.
Especially for you, since you hate them so much.
That's correct. I can spread out my hatred through the entire year. I don't have to condense it down. So did you mention...
Not like a powder keg, but it's more of a slow release of hatred for Duluth.
And it's right. It's better for Dan Jacobson, too. He doesn't need to black out the entire block of podcasts from when we speak so lovingly of his Duluth Bulldogs. Did you mention, so for St. Cloud, just the one series each this year? The only North Dakota. Only North Dakota at home.
Yep.
And they go to CC. CC does not come to St. Cloud. So no trip to Grand Forks. And CC does not come to St. Cloud. I did this for all of the teams in the NCHC to see which 2 teams that each team will only see once, to kind of see who's got the quote unquote easiest schedule and who's got the toughest based on who they're only seeing one time. I would say the toughest schedule is Omaha. They only get CC and Miami one time each. So everyone else except the 2 historic bottom feeders of the conference, they will see twice. As far as toughest, I would say, again, it's hard because, it throws it off because UND and UMD were, 5th and 6th this year. So like St. Cloud's, they're playing the 6th place team and the 7th place team from last year. And that sounds like, well, maybe that's kind of a tough schedule. But one of those teams was North Dakota. So I would imagine might be a little bit better than 6. I don't know. As you mentioned, though, they lost a ton of guys.
They have to replace everyone on defense. And that's not a hyperbole. Literally everyone.
Literally everyone on defense. Is it the third time it's going to be the charm when they pick up a goalie in the transfer portal? Because
that it's going to work.
I don't know if we've mentioned that with Pearson going from. First of all, I've actually heard. I believe it's pronounced Person. I think I read somewhere that it's supposed to be pronounced Person. Ludwig Person from Miami.
I thought that was just a tweet, like trying to be clever from North Dakota
right?
Twitter account that was like, we found our person.
Twitter. I thought I read that somewhere.
But I think people like kind of went with it as like, oh, this is actually how you pronounce it. And it's like, I think he's just trying to make a pun, guys. But either way, I call him Civ. So that's what we're going to call him on this podcast because that's what he is. And that's what he's going to be, especially with no defense in front of him. Which obviously they're going to have defense. I mean, they're going to bring in.
But is it going to be any good?
It's going to be
they'll literally have bodies that have D next to their name on the roster, but is that going to be quality? And from the people that are thinking that Pearson's going to be this person, again, we're going to do like a Pert thing with this goalie here, but
no, you can't do Tony Dorsett or Dorsett. No, you pick one and you stick with that for the rest of your career. It's Pearson.
Well, yeah, so to think that he's going to be the magic potion here that's going to solve North Dakota's ills. I mean, yeah, he's been playing on a terrible Miami team the last couple of years, but I mean, in the last 2 years, picking up Driscoll from Bemidji and then DeRitter. I mean, Bemidji was decent coming off that. They went to the tournament the year before North Dakota picked up Driscoll, but still, Bemidji's not exactly a world beater. And DeRitter came from a bad Michigan State team where his numbers were decent, but they were almost decent because he saw such a ton of shots because of a poor team in front of him. But neither of those pickups worked. I mean, Driscoll was coming off of 2 really good years at Bemidji, and then he turned in a pretty average year for North Dakota.
Which was
DeRitter was a dud.
Really expected. Like I don't know.
Because I remember when Driscoll came in, that was like he's preseason goalie of the year. He was supposed to be really good. North Dakota.
I remember thinking that, of course, he's going to have good numbers in Bemidji. Like Satori, having that on lockdown with no players coming in or out. Yeah, pucks don't go in or out. The net, so it's so it wasn't a surprise to me that he came back in as yeah, he is who we thought he is, because that's who he was in St. Cloud too, average. So I don't know.
And DeRitter was, I thought, a dud last year. I don't think that we can expect Pearson to be, however you pronounce him, that he's going to turn into this great goalie, because I haven't seen it in Miami, even factoring in a bad Miami team. So they'll be interesting. But anyway, getting back to the schedule, I would say as far as the tougher schedules, so we got Duluth only gets, let's see here. No, the toughest was Omaha. I'm looking at the easiest schedules. Duluth only gets Denver and Western Michigan once this coming year. Home versus Denver. They go to Kalamazoo. Those are your 1-2 in the standings last year. Now, Western lost a lot. I'm not sure if they're going to necessarily, we can pencil them in as a number 2 team in the conference.
Yeah.
So the other team I was looking at is Miami, who they got Denver and Omaha as their 2 teams they only see once. Denver, obviously, again, number 1 team. Omaha was 3rd in the conference. So, again, I don't know how good Omaha is going to be next year. Fairly certain Denver is going to be decent. So those are I would say the 2 toughest schedules, or the toughest schedule being Omaha, and then the Duluth and Miami, maybe getting a little bit of a break by only seeing Denver once. So it's yeah, I mean, we're just kind of talking about the fringes here. I mean, everyone's seeing 5 of the teams twice, and you just get 2 teams one time. So the difference isn't terribly all that much. And you still got to win games against tough teams. And it depends on when you see the teams too.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of a luck of the draw kind of situation. So you just can't look at it too in depth. But just wanted to throw that out there. And as far as the St. Cloud non-conference schedule, which again you mentioned has not been fully released, and I'm not really sure why. So our source has it, and I saw that Bill Prout also had this information on his site that the opponents for next year, Bemidji, St. Thomas, Mankato, Michigan, and Alaska, Fairbanks, did not have the road and home splits for those. We knew that Michigan was going to be at home for this coming year. We saw today that it was announced Mankato released its full schedule. They will be playing both of those games in Mankato, the 13th and 14th of October, which is following their last couple of years rotation, where they've just been playing 2-game series, not doing home and homes, which is surprising to me. They're doing home and homes with Bemidji, but they're not doing home and homes with Mankato. Much shorter trip there with Mankato rather than Bemidji. I was also told from my source that Bemidji is going to be played during the winter break, whereas the other 4 will be played in October. I saw today that Bemidji, again, they have not released their full schedule, but their conference schedule was released, and they're playing a series the 5th and 6th of January. And that is not a weekend that St. Cloud plays. And so, which would mean if you're going to play Bemidji in the winter break, you'd play in the last weekend of December, which would then mean you're going to have play in the last weekend in December, and then have an off week, and then resume the second half of the year in conference play, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I'm less confident that Bemidji in the second half, or in the winter break, is for certain. Perhaps they can put an exhibition game in between those two. I feel it's weird to have a long break, play a weekend, and then have another off weekend, and then play conference play. That seems weird to me, but it has not been finalized. From what I would imagine, I was notified of some Twitter buzz that some people think that this Alaska series is in Alaska. That would shock me, because we only have 5 opponents here, and I'm assuming you're playing 2-game series against each of these teams, meaning 10 games. If you're playing in Alaska, you would then be qualified to take advantage of the Alaska exemption, which means you get 2 extra games. Because we're only playing 10 games. If you're going up to Alaska, that means you're not going to take advantage of the Alaska exemption. That would make zero sense to me, especially from a college that has no money. Literally picking the longest road trip in college hockey and not taking the one advantage you get from making that road trip. Yeah. So I would bet money that you're playing Alaska in St. Cloud. I would not be surprised if there was some sort of multi-year agreement that maybe go up to Alaska next year or something like that, and then take advantage of the Alaska exemption that same year. But it would make no sense for you to voluntarily go to Alaska and then not schedule 2 extra games to offset those costs. So I'm assuming that the Alaska games are at St. Cloud. We know the Michigan games are in St. Cloud. We know the Mankato games are in Mankato. We've been playing home and homes with both St. Thomas and Bemidji. So if that's what I'm thinking it is, you would have a 6 home games versus 4 road games split, which is a little different. The last 2 years, Larson's made it a 5-5 even split, home versus road on your non-conference. So we shall have to wait and see. I really don't know why. I mean, the information that we got about these non-conference games came like back in December. I don't know why. I don't know what the big secret about we can't release our full schedule, and they all got to trickle out across April and May and June. Some teams release them, some wait forever. I don't know what the big secret is. I mean, you can go look at the 2033 schedule for the Gopher football team right now. You can Google that. But we can't get information about who St. Cloud's playing this October. We just got to wait until the magic day comes that we get this information. I like being able to be a detective, and we had a good, fun time scooping the Michigan series. But it shouldn't come to that. It's like this information is already out there. I get the fact that sometimes things happen and agreements go by the wayside, and some games you lose games here, or some team backs out of a agreement. I get that, but those are relatively rare. I don't know. I don't know why the wait and the drama of stretching this out. I mean, the fact that we already
you do know what this means, though.
What's that?
That this schedule is going to be released tomorrow. It's going to be on a Friday.
I would love that.
And then all of this whole segment is outdated.
Well, it's evergreen because it happens every year.
Yeah, that's true.
It should happen it should happen the day after the season's done. Like, let's get us ready for next year. Talking to my traveling friend, the guy I take traveling road trips to or with, we're circling the Miami series. And that's in early February. That's the only one neither of us have been to. Maybe this will be a transition to our next topic. But I think that's obviously the big impetus there is we haven't been there yet. And the other reason is we don't know how long they're going to be in the conference. So you might not have a ton of opportunity to go to beautiful Oxford, Ohio, at least in conference play. And some more rumblings that Miami just isn't loving being the doormat of this conference. And some talks now where, CCHA, they're really looking at that league as being more viable for them. And now, the other elephant in the room is Arizona State, up and up program, big school, shiny new arena. It's in Arizona, where I hear the weather is decent. So where are you thinking as far as the future of the NCHC? Do you see let's say, give you, it's not going to happen this coming year. This series St. Cloud plays in Oxford in February, that's not going to be canceled. But let's say 3 years from now, Miami still in the NCHC?
I don't know. Like, the thing is, I still look at this, and maybe this is just pessimism in me or whatnot, but I still look at this as a lot of smoke. And yes, where there's smoke, there's fire, but I don't see a name attached to anything. The only thing was the blog post that they had where they talked, that was with, what was it, the athletic director or the president of Miami, who was saying that they wouldn't want to basically have
the AD.
The AD didn't want to travel out to Arizona. Like, they wouldn't be for that. But, as far as like being the doormat, and the competitive aspect, I feel like that a lot of that is just media projecting onto them that that's what that's what they have been, and not so much as the university or the AD or whatnot as themselves of being like, we can't compete at this level. I can't imagine any actual college saying that. And I can't imagine any college going like, yes, we want to go to a lesser profile conference. Like, you would think they'd want to stay in a higher profile conference, which the NCHC is a higher profile than the CCHA. Now, budgetary reasons, money talks. It might be a lot more easy travel with all of the Michigan teams that are in the CCHA. So, like, that's where I think the media is kind of running with this maybe a little bit more. So I do still think in 3 years, yes, Miami will still be part of the NCHC. But like, I just want some actual source, some actual, journalism happening where somebody can actually tell me like what the plans are, what the thought process is, because right now all I'm getting is just columns and opinion pieces. So that's kind of where I'm sitting when it comes to the whole situation.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to run with that new sounder we got. You mentioned the journalism.
Oh, good point.
Time now for the commentary on the commentary.
Discord. Yeah, so you mentioned there's a piece by our good friend Adam Woden at College Hockey News.
God, we drag him so much, and he has no clue we exist.
And that's the best way.
I feel like this is just pot shots. Maybe it's unfair. I don't know, but
I tried to comment on his piece about Alaska, how Alaska should have made the tournament, and that didn't make it through their spam filters, or it was deleted or something. So this is my only recourse, is to use this podcast.
Fair enough.
And I came up with a fancy new sounder for it, so might as well run with it. But yeah, I think the title of the piece was like "Do the Right Thing," some like Spike Lee reference, and the premise was that there's this pesky, so Miami's not been very good, to put it lightly, and they would be better off competitively and geographically. I'll get to that a little bit later, the geographical fit with CCHA. But they'd just be a better fit in the CCHA. And the only pesky thing that's gumming up the works there is this $1 million exit fee from the NCHC. And Woden's argument, doing the right thing in this case would be NCHC just waive that. Don't pay that. You can leave, and then we can bring in Arizona State. I'm not exactly sure when Woden became a Miami hockey pocket protector, but I felt this was somewhat preposterous. First of all, it's the idea of Miami too. This was one of the original 6. They made their own bed here. They knew exactly what they're getting into. They branched off from the CCHA. They're the only CCHA team to split off when the NCHC was formed. Obviously, Western Michigan was added later along with St. Cloud to make it to the current 8 that we have now. But they knew in 2011, that they were exiting their more geographically aligned league to go into this sexier National Collegiate Hockey Conference. The more prestige, the more championships, all of that. And if you want to take your ball and go home, you shouldn't get an Uber ride for free. You pay the $1 million. If you want to leave, pay the fee. You were one of the schools that put these bylaws in place. The idea that you should just waive that because they're just that bad, screw that. I've mentioned too, this is not a St. Cloud State situation where they are. I just reject out of hand the premise that Miami is this financially poor institution. I mentioned their endowment. I realize it's not everything is about how well endowed you are, but their endowment is in the $650 million range.
I'm happy that's what my wife says too.
To put that in comparison, St. Cloud's endowments is like 40 million-ish. So they're like $600 million richer than St. Cloud is. I think I mentioned the last time we mentioned this that they had $98 million in donations last year. I think I mentioned that was for athletics. That's wrong. It's just $98 million for the entire school. But that was just last year, $98 million that they got from outside donations. Again, that's about twice. It's more than twice the current endowment of St. Cloud is that they were able to fundraise in the 2022 fiscal year. I've actually put out I'm in contact. I haven't gotten a response yet, but I'm in contact with their budget office. I'm kind of playing like a FOIA request kind of thing here because I was going back into their budget, their expenses for hockey. I'm trying to go back to before the NCHC, but their expenses the last year that I was able to get, which I think was 2021, was actually lower than what they were in, I think the furthest back report that I was able to find was 2017. So they've actually like cut some costs in the last 5 or 6 years. And I'd like to know exactly what the super high expense is, or how much more of an expense it is playing in the NCHC than it is the old CCHA. I'm sure it's more, but getting to the geography, the current CCHA, I don't think it's that much different than the NCHC. You mentioned the Michigan team. So it would be, I think it would be less expense for Miami to go in the CCHA because right now you basically have one bus trip and that's to Western Michigan in conference. If you go to the CCHA.
I also think it might help time zone for their fans to watch the games too.
Sure.
Having just more games in a normal time zone.
I'm mostly just focused on the budget aspect of it.
Sure.
But that's a valid point as well. But so you got one bus trip right now in conference, and that's to Western Michigan. You got plane rides for the rest of them. For the CCHA, again, I don't know what constitutes a bus ride. Like what's the limit? What's the longest that you'll go on a bus ride? CCHA, I was just looking at, so you got Ferris F and State, which is like a 6-hour bus ride. Bowling Green, in-state rival, they're like a 3-hour bus ride. That's the closest. Western Michigan, for context, is about a 4-hour bus ride right now. And then Lake State is like 8.5 hours for a bus ride. And then everything else is 11 hours plus bus ride. Interesting fact, from Oxford to St. Cloud is only 50 miles longer than Oxford is to Houghton, Michigan. I didn't realize how much west you go in the Upper Peninsula to hit Houghton. And then Marquette's like an 11-hour bus ride as well. So, but then again, I don't know how easy it is to get a commercial flight into those cities either. Maybe you are taking a bus ride, an 11-hour bus ride one way. That doesn't sound like fun. And if you're going to take an 11-hour bus ride to Houghton, you could take an 11.5-hour bus ride to St. Cloud, but they're not doing that now. So what I'm saying is you're basically swapping out one bus ride league to like a 3 bus ride league, and everyone else there. You're flying into Sioux Falls, you're flying into Bemidji, you'd fly into Mankato. So it's a little bit of a difference, but it's not like the old CCHA, which was a bus ride league. And you're at Miami. Miami's on an island anyway in college hockey land. Now that, other than Arizona State, they're the furthest south program. Like I said, Bowling Green, in-state rival, they're still 3 hours away. That's their closest bus ride to any college. Ohio State, I guess, would be closer, but still a couple hours away. So finding ways to save money, I get it, but I don't think this is a school that's necessarily on financial hardship. Surprisingly, I was able to find that since COVID started, we always hear, how colleges have been killed by COVID. Their enrollment's actually up since the beginning of COVID. Like I said, I reject the notion that they are on financial dire straits. And so, if they want to leave, sure, fine, go ahead, pay the $1 million. And Woden's argument too is, what's $1 million split 7 ways anyway? Tell you what, $100 and whatever $1,000 could come in handy to St. Cloud right now. That'll pay like a couple of years worth of nil money, I bet. So you can't say it's nothing on the receiving end of it, but then say it's too much for Miami on the giving part of it. Like I realize you're splitting it 7 ways, but still, like I said, it's $1 million. We're not living in 1809 here. $1 million at a Division I athletic department is a pittance. So I'm interested to see how that all shakes out. I think I'm with you. I think the Occam's razor here would be that they hang around. But yeah, I mean that interview that their AD did give last year with their Miami blogger was surprising, that the amount of candor that he has. And as you said, this doesn't generally happen, like publicly putting out there that the league that we're in is just too tough. And it's a lament of mine. I'm in agreement in the premise of geography should be more of a factor, but college hockey went away from geography as their determining factor for their conferences when the NCHC formed and when the Big Ten formed. And the CCHA is doing the same thing, more out of necessity. I mean, the NCHC was completely by choice and completely intentional. I mean, it's in the name, National Collegiate Hockey Conference. I think they enjoyed the fact that there's 3 different time zones included here. Geography was specifically abandoned with the formation of that league. And not just college hockey, but all of college sports are kind of following suit now. See what the Big Ten is doing with adding teams from UCLA and USC, and before that Maryland and Rutgers. Geography is being a primary principle, or primary guiding principle is how you form a league. That's a very 20th century idea. And I think it's a dumb idea for college hockey to follow that because of how small it is and how many small universities you have participating in it. So I've been on record saying that it was best how it was before, which is always a popular opinion. But I'm just saying the wish and the hope that we're gonna fold back into that reality is, I think, a pipe dream. So
those days are gone.
So yeah, you got to adapt. And looking at Miami's team history since Bergeron took over, he hasn't gotten to 9 wins in a season yet. All single digits.
9.
No, he is not 9. Here are the win totals since he took over: 8, 5, 7, and 8. So he's looking for that magical 9. They have been a disaster. And talking about transfer portal, mentioned Pearson going to North Dakota. They also lost Red Savage from the Wonder Years. He did not have the Wonder Years in Oxford that he was thinking.
Nope.
And he packed up his bag and went to Michigan State. This Cassetti also was one of their, I'm putting leading scorers in quotes because he had 15 points, but that was like 3rd on their stat sheet. He's in the portal. They lost, I think, 8 guys. Picked up a couple, but more attrition than addition in the transfer portal. Things are not looking very rosy there. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how they really turn it around. We've seen CC make some moves, and they look to be on the rise at least. It doesn't seem like that's the same with Miami. Someone's got to finish in last place in this league. Just seems that Miami is settled into accepting that role on a yearly basis. I don't know. Like you said, would you rather be in the higher profile league that from a recruiting standpoint and just a prestige standpoint, you think you'd be better off there. But I don't know. It's money talks, as you said, and we'll see how this development shakes out. But did want to mention that article, and because it was a good talker. I thought that was a decent rant. Hopefully, I didn't put everybody to sleep.
Well, it was, but again, it's just, I don't know.
Let's talk about the other side of this, about Arizona State.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you could just go to 9, not to burn out the circuit of our button bar here. 9 times. You could just go to 9.
Well, you already threw me under the bus saying I was asleep at it, so now like my cursor.
Now I know you're hovering over it all for the rest of the show. You know, having an odd number of teams in your league is kind of the sexy thing to do now. Big Ten does it with 7. Hockey East is at 11. Atlantic Hockey is going to be at 11 when Robert Morris gets back in. So you guys, and CCHA is going to 9.
It's
going to 9 with Augustana.
Nope, not doing it now. Now you expect it.
But see, you're right, because they're like a quasi member for the next 2 years. They're like, they are a member, but they're not. They're not qualified for playoffs and playing like a 16 game league schedule. So we'll wait a couple of years until they're officially a member, and then we can use that button bar then. But seems like everyone's going 9 teams, or at least an odd number of teams. So maybe that's not too far out of the realm of possibility. But
add in Lindenwood.
NCHC adds in Lindenwood.
There you go.
Well, see, getting back to like organizing principles of the league. Yeah, they threw out geography as being any sort of important principle. It seemed like their main organizing principle is we want schools where hockey is the number one focus, and that hockey is a strength. Now, the only reason I know about Lindenwood is because of their hockey team. Mm-hmm. I literally wouldn't know that the university existed. If not for, I was familiar with their women's team before.
Yeah,
the men's
yeah.
team.
St. Cloud's women's team has played Lindenwood.
Yeah, like every year almost.
Yeah,
for like 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like one of the few teams they were able to beat up until recently.
Yeah.
But they're not close to viable national. It's not a team that anyone takes seriously.
Well, neither is Miami.
They're literally the last place team in pairwise last year. And they play in a rink that's hosting a regional next year, but it's a practice rink for a pro team.
It's an untapped market.
If you go, but again, I don't think they're interested in growing the game. They're interested in having their club with all of their banners and all their long-term history and well-charted long-term success. Lindenwood doesn't fit that bill.
Oh, that's true.
But Arizona State really doesn't fit that bill either.
Yeah, neither does Arizona State. So,
but Arizona State has some more obvious pluses in their column too. I mean, the facility.
Andrew's right there.
Right here. I saw that their Desert Hockey Classic was announced. It's Omaha and UMass Lowell and Harvard. I never seen UMass Lowell or Harvard play.
Oh, there you go.
I can scratch off 2 more teams next year. But so I don't. I mean, yeah, they don't, and they've made a tournament.
I saw Lowell lose the Yale in the 2013 Frozen Four.
I've never seen Yale play either. It'd be another one on my list.
I saw them twice and I hated it both times. So,
yeah. So
I was rooting for Lowell that game. So yeah, that was it. That was just a bummer Frozen Four all around.
Well, coming from the Harvard of the Midwest, you hate Yale.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a natural sort of hatred.
It's a natural circle there.
But yeah, so I don't know. There's certainly some concessions you'd have to make on these guiding principles if you were to invite Arizona State in the league. But I think Arizona State makes more sense than Lindenwood does for sure. But yeah, so I don't know how they go here. I would be surprised if they did go with an odd number, or at least went with an odd number without having another team lined up for the future.
Yeah.
Like maybe you play one season with 9 teams and then, you add a 10th team, or you have a 10th team lined up for the next year or something like that. I can't see them just going 9 and then we don't know what a 10th team is. I feel like that's going to create a scheduling problem if they go that way. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's going to be 2016 all over again when you finally let the Arizona State and Mankato. Remember, those are the teams that applied back then, and were told no. Maybe it comes because I think Mankato. I know we haven't really mentioned them here, but they fit the bill closer to what Arizona State does or Lindenwood does.
Who knows now with Hastings gone?
Very true. Those
and a quarter of their
Cloud,
team now in commitments.
That's right.
Fled
when St. Cloud plays them next year, that's going to be the first games of the Luke Strand era. Yeah. They play an exhibition game the weekend before, but these will be the first games that count under their new regime. So yeah, it'll be very interesting. But yeah, I think and then if you add Mankato, Miami's not going to be happy about that. It's yet another bus ride. So yeah, we've had these conversations before. It seems like it's a common summer topic, and it is fun to speculate. And I suppose it's a decent problem to have when you have some newer teams in the mix. I did see a report that Binghamton University in New York is looking at going D1, which would be interesting. I feel I know we had a question from someone about adding or new teams adding, and it is just a shame that we don't see some bigger name schools join the fray. Schools that have a national recognition. Schools, I don't know,
schools like Illinois.
Schools like Illinois.
Is that guy still trying to sell his Twitter account? Special announcement coming soon. Illinois adding D1 hockey. Okay, buddy.
It's just, yeah, it'd be great if those teams, if a team like that, or pick someone from not that part of the country, I guess, I don't know, mentioned UCLA. They used to have a team back in the 40s. Someone like that in a more remote area, but a university that has a ton of resources that you'd feel could potentially make the step up. I've been crossing my fingers. I mean, Tucson, they're building a rink for the University of Arizona here for their hockey team in Tucson. It's supposed to be a 3,000 seat arena with a community rink as well. So 2 rinks total. I saw that they're playing an exhibition game against Arizona State next year. Their club team is. But it doesn't seem like there's any plans on going up to D1. I even trying to find articles about it. There was something from their student newspaper that was saying it made it very clear that they didn't know what the hell they were talking about, because they said this building will allow them to move up to D2 hockey. I'm they don't play. They literally don't have D2 hockey. They got rid of that 25 years ago. So I don't know if they mean club team. I mean, their club team is currently D1 club. So I don't know what the hell but it's their facility that they're building is better than a bunch of current teams' facility.
Yeah.
And if a team like Arizona made the jump, that would make more of a splash than, Lindenwood or Binghamton or Stonehill or Utica
Long Island.
or any of these sort of. We got to look up where they are because I've never heard of this program before. See what Penn State did. You get kind of a dickish coach in there that only schedules Atlantic hockey teams. You could have that in your backyard if you were the University of Arizona. I'm sure all those Atlantic teams
that's
would
the dream.
Love a trip down to Tucson. So yeah, it's intriguing, but at the same time kind of frustrating too, because the growth of the sport is a good thing, but it's this growth where it's not like we're okay. Lindenwood is in the group now, and that means what? I don't know. Like you even said, like it's growing the game in the St. Louis area, but ask like 10 fans at a Blues game. Hey, just check out that Lindenwood game. They'd be, what? I don't know. Maybe this regional next year will really
drive up everything.
Drive the fan interest in college.
I always thought the Pacific Northwest would be a good spot to really start some kind of expansion. And now with the Kraken there too, I thought. Now, obviously,
junior hockey tradition there.
WHL does have a foothold with, I believe, 2 teams in the WHL?
There's like 5 in Washington State. Then there's the Portland Winterhawks. I think there's 5 or 6 teams in the U.S. in the WHL.
Oh God, yeah, there are a lot more than I thought. Maybe
that almost went up. There's I think there's one in.
Yeah, maybe that would be a little bit tougher to break into then.
What are the 5 teams in Washington? Is it Walla Walla? Is that one of them? Spokane's one.
Not Walla Walla.
I think there's some in some weird town, like a town I'd never heard of.
Kennewick, Portland, Everett, Seattle, Spokane.
What was this? What was the first one you said?
Kennewick.
Kennewick. Yeah, is that the one that's like kind of? It's like south central. What? Like kind of like Oregon?
South central, south, maybe a little bit in the east, but central.
Yeah, okay.
East.
I think that was the closest one to me when I was living in Oregon, and I was thinking about maybe going up there, but it was about like a 6-hour drive even to the closest one, so I never did go. But yeah, the thing about college hockey is you're talking about that would be a good geographical area to tap. There's a lot of geographical areas that are available to tap. Pacific Northwest, West Coast, California, the South. Basically, like I said, Miami is the second most South program in D1 other than Arizona State. And they play hockey down there. Get like a University of Florida in there. Get Texas in there. It's interesting. Don't know why if you like you are a team like that, a school like a big school like that, you really got to plant the flag there as like the flagship college hockey program in that not only state but region. You think that there'd be an opportunity there, but we've mentioned many times making money in college hockey is a tough gambit. So it's easier said than done, I would say.
Yep, exactly. So, we can hop over to questions unless any more Woden you want to drag.
Nah,
we can do that.
Not this week. Well, I made the sounder not just for this week, but for in anticipation for future. Not just Woden either. That's I'm sure we can fire that up when you have your hot takes on the latest Jess Myers article. So we'll keep that one on ice.
Yep, exactly. So, questions. Dan Jacobson, Bruins or Avalanche first round exit, which was more exciting?
The Bruins.
Yeah.
Because those are more exciting games.
Well,
are you on the Kraken train? Because I am not.
It's like when you say on the train, what do you mean?
I think the mainstream
first off,
opinion is that this is a
weird.
cute story. This is a cute story that, they're America's underdog. I see kind of a lot
weird
of
rooting for Hextall, if that means anything. So I don't think I can. So I guess I'm not on that train.
They've got a very much an 03 Wild vibe to me.
I can see that,
but I'm not a huge fan of them. They're
Will Borgen though.
He's having a good
U.S. Olympian. Will Borgen,
right.
Husky great.
And he was so good in those Olympics.
Good Lord. Yeah. You take him out for a whole month of the season just to not play him in the Olympics.
Because we're giving so much ice time to 40-year-olds.
To Brian Giunta. Obviously that's not the right position, but Noah Welch or whatever his name was.
That team was even... I wonder, I can't remember exactly what the timeline was, like how far in advance they had to assemble that roster. But even in comparison to the 2022 Olympic team, which had much more NCAA participation, that 18 team, like their best players were the 3 NCAA guys that they chose to play. Yeah. And all the others were these just grinder 36-year-old
and Garrett
AHL and Garrett Rowe. Yeah,
I remember
that's what you get
too,
when you hire Tony Granato to run your team. You can't expect too much.
Wait, shut up. Was he the coach?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Look it up.
Are you kidding me?
I forgot that.
No way he was the coach.
He's a Granato dude. Granato is synonymous with USA
Everything
hockey.
Makes so much sense now that, of course that team would be terrible. Look what he did to Wisconsin. This is all falling into place.
He took that Wisconsin job in 16
or 17.
It was 16, 17 was his first year, and they made it to the Big Ten championship game, which was coming off several Mike Eves years where he was doing the Chris Bergeron thing, where single-digit win years. So them having a good first year under Granato, his stock was probably somewhat high at that specific sliver of life.
Sliver of time. So you assemble a team with James Wisniewski playing in the second-tier Germany league.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jimmy is a grinder.
But nope, we're gonna sit Will Borgen on the bench.
It was what? It was Troy Terry. It was Terry
Donato.
Who were the other Donato? It was their best players by far were the current NCAAers. The only guys that weren't born in the 80s, that was their best players. So maybe they learned a bit of their lesson because they had a better contingent, but they still had Andy Mealy and who else was on this last team too? They had another 10 guys, just beer leaguers. It's 35 plus league. It's just I hope that they either go full college or they just go back to the pros in the Olympics, because this 6 of one, half dozen of the other that they're doing now is just not working all that hot. But anyway, where are we going? Will Borgen, I think, is where we sprung board into the 2018 Olympics.
Which, I mean, kind of somewhat in the same vein, they did announce the rosters today for the World Championships, and Nick Perbix is on that roster.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it was. So. I'll say it was nice watching this first round. You had Borgen, who's, I think he played every game for the Kraken this year in the regular season.
I think so,
and obviously in the playoffs as well, and scored a goal in that Avalanche series.
Scored a goal before Matt Nyes did.
That's right. And then with Tampa, you had Asamont, and Perbix. Asamont scoring a key goal in one of those games, game 5, kind of a cheap goal, but it still was and that was after him getting absolutely plastered in Was it game 1?
I will also have to say Acimont was really good at those cheap goals.
You're a scorer like that, you get a fair amount of those.
Hey, just going back when you were talking about local guys playing for St. Cloud, do you count Little Falls as well or no?
I think I would. Yeah, because then you would have Fessler
and Hanowski.
You'd have Hanowski.
So
Hanowski. Yep. Yeah, I think it's within an hour's radius.
Yeah, so
at least
anyway,
north.
back to about an hour and a half ago. just want to add that in. So I would say the Florida series was, at least from an entertainment standpoint, that game 6, the 7-5 game or whatever, I thought was a real fun game to watch. And I picked him. I put money on him to beat the Maple Leafs, and that's looking not too bad right now. So I'm enjoying the NHL playoffs. Watching a lot of pretty much all the action. It's nice. We had a request for more Tony Mosey stories, which sadly I'm all tapped out. So if anyone has any, please chime in.
I actually saw him coming out of the Miller Center once, which was only notable because if you would have asked me, I don't think I would have figured that Tony Mosey knew where the library was. I just remember he was also, maybe this sounds snooty or whatever, but he was like wearing like all sweatpants and like he looked like he literally was in his pajamas. Were you one of those guys that just dressed up like? Because I feel like I'll put jeans on. I'm not going to put sweatpants on and go to a class. Is that too snooty of me?
I mean, I guess it depends on the time of the class and how drunk I was the night before. I think those are the 2 key factors. But usually if I was that drunk the night before, I just didn't go. I mean, it's called the Harvard of the Midwest for a reason.
That was my general playbook as well.
But
that's all I got for my Tony Mosey stories as well. But if anyone does have any other,
I would love to hear it.
Chestnuts, let us know.
Man. God, my buddy Eric Zamora. God, he had a really good story, and I can't remember who it was about. It wasn't. It wasn't Chronic.
Great.
It wasn't Chronic, but apparently he would just always throw in like his old DVD of his high school highlight reels and always show that at parties.
Nice.
And he would like pretend he was describing plays of how good it was, but he would hold like an imaginary stick in his hands, but he would hold it up at like both hands by his shoulders and like pretend he was. It's like, why are you holding the stick like that? It's bizarre. Anyway, that's the story. Anyway, back to the fish story. With the roster next season mostly set, what are your predictions for next season? Who has the most goals and points? Team MVP?
Well, we've already got team MVP with Sahlquist.
Yeah, so. I mean, first face-off,
he's the wire-to-wire winner.
Yep,
first face-off, and I'm sure he's going to be netting the overtime winner in the national championship game. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And then again, I will eat all of the crow. Who scores the most points as of right now? Who do you think? I bet's Okabe. But
I think that's the safe money.
That's kind of the safe one, yeah. I mean, that would be like the plus 150 option right there.
And I think like the plus 250 option would be like Anhorn.
Yeah.
And I might put my money on Anhorn.
Yeah.
I almost like those odds better. But that's the thing. I think he was leading the team in scoring when he got injured. I think that's right. I guess we can probably go back and check. But that's not an every year occurrence where a defenseman is your leading scorer. If he is their leading scorer, Anhorn will be a top 10 Hobie.
Yeah.
Finalist.
I feel. Yeah.
And I'll also give you another dark horse. I don't know if we mentioned him for MVP, Dominic Bassi.
I like that. I think that would be key. As far as like predictions overall, I am really, really up in the air when it comes to not only next year's Huskies hockey team. I love our future. I think this year might be a little bit. Again, I felt this way at the beginning of last year too. That I felt like it would be a little bit of a drop back, and we'd fight for and scrap for home ice, which I mean I guess we did kind of in the end. But I thought we'd be on the outside looking in the NCAA tournament. I kind of feel, if you ask me right now, we might be. But I think for as much as people say the NCHC took a hit from last year, 2 years ago to last year, now we can talk about this, I think it's going to be maybe even a bigger hit from last year to this upcoming year. I feel like it's going to be very wide open just with all of the moves and shakeups that's happening around. And I wouldn't be surprised a lot of ways of how the standings might look coming in as we continue on for next season. And I don't know where St. Cloud's going to sit in that standing. I think a lot of these teams are very even with a couple bottom feeders. I don't see a standout. Even Denver, I don't feel is that much of a standout.
No, they have their question marks too.
Yeah,
for sure.
And again, we're gonna later on we're obviously going to go a lot more in depth about it.
We don't even know who's all coming yet. Too. It's like it's still somewhat in flux. Like we have ideas, but we'll be able to really get a grasp and make a good prediction. The September podcast, I'm sure, when we do a season preview.
We'll make a really good, thorough, hard prediction that is going to be completely wrong. So that I'm going to be
we were both right last year. I think we both had them at fourth place. So we were correct there.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you this. I mean, saying that last year you said fourth, which was correct, but you also said they would not make the NCAA tournament.
Correct.
I did say they would make the NCAAs. And it took you a bit throughout the year. Like I think we mentioned, like it was like the North Dakota sweep at home. That's kind of when the worm finally turned for you. You became fully sold on this team.
Yeah, I was all in at that point. Yeah.
Are you feeling, again, very early, all those caveats, are you feeling better or worse about this team than you were coming into last year?
A little bit better.
Okay. I do too.
Yeah. A little bit better.
I think a big part of that is goaltending. That it's seemingly not as much of a question mark, even though it turned out pretty much aces. Turned out as good as it could have turned out. I think that we would have ever thought it could have turned out. How Castor and Bassi were able to split the load last year. And I guess it's a question mark that Bassi hasn't been the number one guy yet. And that's a different responsibility for him. But we know with the sample size that we have from him, I think there is a baseline set of knowing that we're not going to dip below that at least. And I think that goes a long way to being a little bit more confident about this coming year's team than last year. But I would agree. I think it's a big part of that too is with who's all returning as well. Like bringing back 30-point players in Okabe and Miettinen, and then with Okabe or with Anhorn as well. If those guys weren't coming back, I don't know where it'd shake up. But as you said too, like Western has lost a lot of guys. CC, even though they sort of ended last year on a high note, they had a lot of transfer action from the transfer portal, losing guys there. UMD, a disappointing year last year, and then guys like Howard leave. Don't exactly know where they're going to end up. UND, as you mentioned, with like no defense and building that from literal scratch. Omaha, my gut tells me that last year was a bit of a fluke. So it's this might be as wide open as it's ever been.
Yeah.
In the NCHC, and perhaps considering that, I'm even more confident because I don't think that the rest of the league is returning the kind of guys that St. Cloud is, whereas the others are going to be more dependent on new guys, freshmen, and transfer additions, and that can always be, I think, a challenge. So I guess in that sense, it gives me a little bit more confidence about the Huskies.
I feel that way when it comes to the conference standings and where, we may end up in the conference. But nationally, if the teams like Omaha or whatnot, they stumble against non-conference like they seem to always do. Or their non-conference, like you said, isn't quite up to par where it doesn't, I don't know, I worry about also the non-conference and how we perform. If we do take a step back, obviously it hurts the non-conference, which is a huge hit to the pairwise, which maybe only 2 teams get in next year.
Well, and as these schedules trickle out,
common theme for
me is kind of the Charmin non-conference schedules that the NCHC teams are lining up. So Western Michigan, 4 games against Lindenwood next year, 2 at home, 2 in Lindenwood. UNO's back at it with scheduling Niagara at home this coming year. Didn't work out for him last year. Probably cost him an NCAA trip.
Yeah.
See if that works out for him better this year. Miami's non-conference was a mix of mostly Atlantic hockey teams, and I think Ferris F and State, UMD. I think they had like a Cornell trip in there, so it wasn't. And the Gophers, they're probably maybe the best non-conference schedule that I've seen so far of the NCHC teams. But that gives you that's your margin for error is that much smaller. If you dump some of these games, then not only does that torpedo your own team's chance to make the tournament, but kind of creates a ripple effect for the rest of the conference as well, because you can't get fat in the non-conference with quality wins, maybe quantity wins, but not necessarily quality wins. And if you lose a couple of them, then that can really sort of drive everybody's strength of schedule down. So I was a little disappointed by that and surprised by it as well. So, I mean,
we'll talk talk more about that as the off season.
As it all gets finalized.
So, over under on fish stories. I think so far in this podcast, I think I'm at 3 or 4.
Several.
So, in this season, I hope under 0.5. I think we're done with the Omaha announcer with that one. Tried to get a clip of that. I'll still try to clip it anyway. It's maybe it's too soon for a Mandela effect, but he didn't actually say anyways back to the fish story. But there were 3 or 4 times where he did say anyways and then went back to his story. So it's like anyways, then parentheses back to the fish story and parentheses, I guess. But anyway, maybe I'll still get at that clip because I could use it here for how many times I've switched topics. Go Huskies woo. Recount 2 more goals that round out your top 3 Huskies goals of all time. I can't put Brocklehurst 1, 2, and 3 apparently. So I'm gonna limit it to goals that I've seen live, which I guess we can go back to a Tony Mosey story.
Say in the building.
In the building.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's I feel would be prudent.
And is this a serious question or?
I mean, if you can think of. I mean, I don't know where Brocklehurst ranks on your list of top Husky goals of all time, or if you were in the building at that time.
I was not at the building at that time. Watch it on TV. I don't think that I wouldn't use that as because we're talking like impactful goals or highlight reel quality.
Well, it's your definition. You make it what you want. Be what you want to be in the world, Andrew. The
Or
world is your oyster.
The paling between the legs.
Were you in the building for that one?
In North Dakota? No.
Oh,
I'm saying that's not part of my criteria.
Okay, that's not. Gotcha. Okay, sounds good.
I'm just thinking about best goals, but
Cronulla.
But then
Michigan against North Dakota. No,
I have a hot take.
Oh yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of the Michigan
I remember
goals.
that. Yeah, I remember that.
No, and that was a 6th goal in a 8-1 game. Like,
yeah, that makes it even better.
It did not move the needle at all. At least the paling goal was an overtime winner in North Dakota.
Was that overtime?
Thought so.
It was.
Maybe it was late in the third.
I think it was late in the third. I don't. Think
I mean, it was.
But it was
the. I think it was the
impactful.
game-winning goal. It was the most important goal of that game. I thought it was overtime, but it was in that 2018 Olympics era that my brain is fuzzy from that time. So, but as far as just
I was in the building for the Mosey goal. So
for the Northern Michigan goal
against Northern Michigan. So. Which
that's a good one. I was in the building.
I guess I need more context. I just say the Mosey goal.
I was in the building for the Nick Dowd ping.
Oh, against Notre Dame? Really?
See, that's the thing. Like, you kind of think about important goals, key important goals. Like, I'm sure there's some goal out there similar, like the paling goal was just this dangle and it's just a highlight reel. It's like it could have made Sports Center that day. February of 2008.
I got it. I got my number 3.
Hit it.
In Wisconsin. I was at Wisconsin. Jared Raby
scoring
to make it 2-1, and we end up sweeping Wisconsin for the first time in like forever in Madison.
And you were
and then I was in the building, and then I took to State Street right afterwards and tore up Madison. Went to the Old Fashioned. Had like 5 or 6 there. I was a stumbling fool. Which you're in Madison, so
was it the next day or the day before that they smoked him? It's like a 5-1 game.
5-1 was the first game.
That was the first game. So this is the second.
The second game was the Jared Raby. Which
Jared Raby?
Oh my gosh,
my all-time least favorite Husky. I yelled at the TV more at his. I cursed his name more than I think any other.
Oh my God, he had so much playing time too.
We're talking about centers. You want centers to be good skaters, but defense is your best skater. This guy couldn't hack it as a skater as like a 4th line grinder type, but they put him on the back end.
He went back and forth. They did a little bit of bench story.
That's right, and he should have stayed the forward. He would have been.
I think he started a defense. I think they put him back and forth because they realized they were like, just stay there and just give other people a break.
Whenever you get into the Motzko, you suck at defense. Let's try you up front. That's never a good portal to enter. We don't know what position Bob Motzko thinks you are portal. So
that's never a good place to be. All right, I'm trying to think who was so. Oh my gosh, Jared Raby was on the top line this game. Okay, random box score time.
Yes.
Here we go. We're doing this.
So what?
We got to come up with
11.
We got to come up with a sounder.
2011.
The 11-12 season. So this game took place on February 4th of 2012.
2012. Well, let me see who those line mates were.
Okay.
Top line.
I mean, I don't think it was the top. It was top line listed.
Fessler.
Nope.
We mentioned him already. Yeah. So like Hanowski.
Fessler.
So he would have.
So College Hockey Stats has Fessler at 3rd line center.
So
who did you just say?
I said Hanowski and Fessler. Was Hanowski correct?
Hanowski was the center on the line with Jared Raby.
And who would have been on that other side with him? David Eddy.
Ooh, that's really close. David Eddy.
He's on the team.
He
right?
was. He was second line. Center Nick Dowd and Joey Holka was that line.
Oh boy, you would have given me 20 years, I never would have come up with Joey Holka. That is a blast from the past.
We didn't have, so we don't have a fourth right wing, so we must have been scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Cam Reed still on the team, or did he bolt to the WHL by this point?
Yeah, he bolted at this point.
I'm bad at remembering who was center and who was wing.
Oh, I am too. The redheaded wonder, Corey Thorson.
Oh, good.
Thorson, Hanowski, and Raby, and sure enough, Raby gets the game-winning goal.
So would that have been a Mike Lee start?
Yes, that was.
And yeah, who would have been the top D pair? Jensen
and
would have been in that time period. It's going to be someone random, like
no, it's
not Lordson.
No, it's you can make a debate, maybe not a debate, but I would say if you pick like the top 10 Husky defense of all time, his name's on it.
And we're not talking about Nick Jensen.
I mean, we're talking about him too. His name's on that list too.
Yeah, I would definitely put him in the top 10. But who else would have been in that? So you're telling me that this is like some obvious Prowl?
Nope.
I think that would have been too early for him.
Yeah, I think it was. Minnesota
12.
From Minnetonka.
Well, not Schultz. I'm going to be kicking myself here.
Yeah, I think.
Why am I blanking on?
Do you want his initials? I'll give you a hint. You're very familiar with his first name.
Oh, Prochnow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
You think you put him in the top 10?
Yeah.
I think, he's close.
Yeah, I would put him.
I guess I wouldn't. I would have to list out all the D.
Which
certainly top 15.
I guess if we want to make the announcement for our probable future podcast, if we can do that right now, we are planning a Huskies draft, all-time Husky player. All-time draft. We're gonna pick 3 forwards, 2 goalies, or 2 defensemen and a goalie. Snake draft. We're gonna have 4 people. We're gonna have 2 guests on the show. And we're going to go through the players. We're going to draft. We're going to debate who has the best team. Fans, you're going to get a vote. I don't know how the Jeff Finger wild card's going to go, what round he's going to go in. Stay tuned, find out. But so right now, what we have scheduled right now, cards subject to change, as they say in wrestling. Obviously, Andrew and myself, but we're going to have Eric, Team Euro Disney on Twitter, who works right now for the Norsemen. One of my college hockey, buddies from college that, we've gone to road trips together. We were in Madison for that one. So, for the Jared Raby goal. So he would probably agree.
That's right.
And obviously the Husky legend himself, Go Huskies Woo, will be the 4th member. So it's going to be a fun little draft, all-time Huskies. And maybe I'm tipping my hand too early, but I would put Prochnow on that list for defenseman. He might be.
This is the first
on my parents.
This is the first that you're mentioning. It's just going to be 3 forwards, 2 D, and 1 goalie. Now I know. I mean, we're at 230 right now. Maybe put like 2 lines of forwards.
The thing is, I don't want the podcast to go 5 hours. And I feel like with discussion too.
That is a decent. That's what I'm saying. That was a decent. Yeah. So times 4. So 24 players total. That should be enough. I think that'll do.
Yeah. So I didn't want to go too far into it. Just one
line.
All
right, so now I got to think about it. One line.
I also thought about maybe having like an extra skater too, or if you want to put like an extra forward or an extra defense or an extra goalie, I guess if you wanted. But I felt like just keep it simple, just one line for every entrant, and we'll go from there. So that's in the works.
I like it.
And I think that'll be a fun little show. Who knows? Joey Holcomb might get drafted.
That's right.
So,
that is correct.
So, So Prochnow and Jensen was a pairing. Gravel and Taylor Johnson, and then Tim Daly, obviously the big star from Wings,
yep.
And Sam Zabkowitz.
Wow.
So 2-1 victory. Mike Lee with the
Zabkowitz would have been doing a homecoming tour there. I think he's from Madison. I know he's from Wisconsin, but that's how soon you forget. Like I haven't heard the name Sam Zabkowitz in 10 plus years, and he was like an integral part of that team for like 3-4 years. I used to have hot takes about Sam Zabkowitz that I even forget now. I miss it. Fun little era of Husky hockey.
He's from Greendale, Wisconsin. So just outside of, or it's in Milwaukee County. It's part of the Milwaukee. I'm sorry, Milwaukee.
Sorry for
Algonquin for the good land.
For lumping him in with all the Madison people. He's Milwaukee suburbs. So, yes.
And the only major U.S. city to elect 3 socialist mayors.
And what was it? It's got the more vowels than consonants in its name.
No,
that was a trivia question you had.
That was, but it wasn't Milwaukee.
Or no, it was Albuquerque. But somehow you brought up Milwaukee, or maybe I guessed it or something.
I think you guessed it, which was a good.
It was a decent guess.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And then I went into the same Wayne's World spiel because,
then the socialist governors. Yeah. Now it's all coming back.
Mayors. I don't think Wisconsin is ever a socialist governor.
You get it.
So, anyway, that was random. So let's back to the questions. What will the team need to do with a whole bunch of baby centers? Salquist is really going to have to step up. What are the odds Salquist gets a letter next year? Oh man, I'm going to cry.
Pretty good.
God, I'm going to cry. He will, won't he?
That's up to the players, though, right?
Here's the thing:
the coaching staff.
Like, I don't even hate Salquist or his game or anything along those lines. So it's this weird. Like, I drag him a lot, but it's just it's more of the fault of Larson at this point.
It's the Nick Punto effect.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Punto's a fine player as your
Salquist is the
infielder.
Punto of this Husky hockey era.
Yes, but when you put Nick Punto as your everyday 155 game shortstop, that's just too much.
God, I went on a date.
Less is more.
Yeah, I had a crush on a girl in college who, God, her favorite player was Nick Punto.
Oh my God!
Yeah, right?
I hate her just by association.
Shocker! It didn't work out. But anyway, I shouldn't say that she's still a lovely person, but yeah, it did.
Very short, very good story, but I'm going to condense it to 5 seconds. There was Nick Punto at an airport yelling to the person behind the counter, "Do you know who I am?"
Shut up. He did not.
I'll tell you the whole story after the show.
Oh,
it's good.
Wow. That is ridiculous.
That's the only good part of the story you need to know. But
that's
or no, it was actually there's one other good part because
everything.
So they lost his luggage. They lost his luggage, and he had like his equipment bag. And for some reason, he was flying commercial. This must have been like after the season. And the guy behind the counter obviously he didn't know who Nick Punto was, and he's not really much of a sports fan. So when he does like do you know who I am? He goes, "Sir, like we'll have your softball equipment to you shortly." Like that was his way and that drove him up the wall even more. Just the idea of him saying that, yelling that at some random United employee makes me chuckle.
God, if you listen to 2 hours and 40-ish minutes of this podcast just to get to that part, I think it's worth it.
We didn't have too many Tony Mosey stories, but we had a Nick Punto story.
Nick Punto story. I guess the other option would have been, do you know who I am? Yeah, I do. And I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, and I don't like your $186 batting average.
Oh man, and what year was this? What Twins year was this? Were they?
It would have been it would have been
were...
during his Twins tenure, so late 2000s, probably late aughts, around that era. I don't know exactly when.
Okay, because they did have some decent seasons in there yet, right? So
well, yeah, I mean, he was like one of the main piranhas of that 06 year. And then I think it was the next year they decided, hey, we'll roll this even back better and give him a raise, a salary bump, and give him a starting and shortstop job. And he literally hit like 204 with no power, no walks.
Will we see more and more new schools added to D1 landscape? We talked about that a little bit. Thank you for that question. How will starting a new season affect UConn's pairwise? Still in the tank. What a fall that was. Brian Mose, last question. I should ask him. Is it Mose or Moose? I should ask.
It's person.
It's right back to the pronunciation. Anyway, how many points will Thorson score in the USHL this year?
Does Corey Thorson still have USHL eligibility?
Oh my God! Did I really say Corey Thorson?
No, you said Thorson, and I was going along with a bit because we brought him up.
It
was a joke. It was an attempt at humor.
No, because I thought I actually said Corey because it was actually in my head not to say Corey Thorson.
Well, sorry to throw you off.
Yeah, so that's why you kind of threw me out. I was like, oh man, I did, didn't I? But no.
Well, we were trying to think like how many games they play in the USHL.
How many times am I going to screw? Do you think Jim Risch will screw that up in the play-by-play too? When he
might.
I don't know if he did.
Might.
Did he call any of the games in the Corey Thorson era?
I think so. He's been there for like 10 years. I think that gets back into that era a little bit. He might. The only way that he'll certainly get tripped up is if Thorson has anything to do with the overtime rules, because then he will get tripped up.
Then that'll be confusing. So.
But yeah, how many games they play in the USHL? We're thinking like 60, 70 in that range.
I think so, somewhere.
Whatever it is, I'll keep it simple and I'll say let's look at point per game.
Yeah, that's. Like, I think he would hover,
and maybe like a tick more, like 1.05 points per game. I will say, as my prediction.
Yeah, I don't,
because he's basically doing that right now, and that's as an 18-year-old, and that's taking, that's straddling the USHL season and playing a high school season in between. If he has a full year, uninterrupted, a year older, presumably a little bit bigger, I think he could dominate that league. So. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So he's on Waterloo, and like so much of that also point per game, and is how good Waterloo is going to be.
How good his line is. Yeah, it is a bit fickle as far as it can depend on your situation, but
yeah, if it's around
adapting pretty well so far.
Yeah. And if I'm around a point per game, obviously I'm going to be ecstatic. So that's what I'm kind of shooting for.
Yeah, we should have.
I'm shooting for like I can do anything about it.
I'm intrigued too. I don't know, on-air production meeting, but we're talking about some of these prospects and some of their draft status or potential for getting drafted. Maybe see if if we could do something like that. The draft is, I think, in July. Typically, after the Stanley Cup. So, put a pin in that. Maybe we can have like a draft expert on. See either predict like where they're going, or maybe after the draft and sort of do some analysis. Yeah. That'd be a good one, because I think we're gonna have a couple of these recruits are gonna get drafted. I think.
Yeah. The thing I worry about, obviously, though, with Thorson, he's listed at 5'8", 154. So that's where, you're saying getting a little bit bigger. I think that would be key. So.
Yeah. Eat those magic beans. And just not the Dryden McKay magic beans, but the FDA approved ones.
Right, exactly. So. Well, that about does her.
That about does her.
Geez, maybe 3 hours. Maybe we should
It's a
have
short
this podcast a little more often even during the off season.
Well, no, this is basically, think of it as 4 podcasts.
Oh, there you go.
Because this is your May podcast.
One and a quarter podcast, actually. But yeah, thank everybody for listening.
Yes,
I'm More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers. Andrew, you can reach him via email at.
You can reach me at Huskies Hockey Podcast at gmail.com. Send me an email.
Perfect, and that's Huskies.
Skis.
Right. So, sounds good. And until next time, go Huskies. Woo!
Woo!